Well, thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about esports. Obviously, it's something that I'm deeply passionate about. My name is Carlos Alimurung. I'm the CEO of One Esports. And today, what I'd like to do is to help demystify who the esports fan is. A lot of the information that I'm going to share from you today comes from our own in house data and analytics team, who really has been an incredible, powerful team within our portfolio that helps us really deeply understand who are the esports fans in Southeast Asia, what motivates them, what are their preferences. And today I hope to share some of that data with you um, to help again, as I mentioned, demystify who these people are. I think there's a lot of preconceived notions on what gamers do and how they behave and their lifestyle, and I hope to shed some more light and provide a better view into who these people are. The short of it is that not only is this a very big and large growing community, but this is a community that lives incredibly diverse brand lives that many brands have an opportunity to engage and connect with. So let's go ahead and start. I think the first thing that I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about who One Esports is, because I think this will give you some context for why we're gathering as much data as we are. So first, what this slide shows is essentially the entire portfolio of One Esports, which is a leading global esports platform. Obviously, starting in the upper left corner, we do world-class events. We just finished the Dota 2 Major here in Singapore, which generated over 274 million views. So it was pretty large scale. It was an amazing experience. We also own and operate OneEsports.gg, which is one of the largest esports news sites in the world. Our social media is massively scaled. We're across, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also TikTok. We also have our own studio that does long form and streaming content. And then, as I mentioned previously, we have our own insights and data team that's doing proprietary research. And this entire portfolio really enables us to really deeply understand who our fans are and who our community are. And what that essentially is translated to, as I go to the next slide here, is we've been privileged to work with the world's best brands. If you look at the brands on this page, many of these brands don't need brand building. Samsung, Netflix, Shopee, Lazada, Intel. So the question is, why do they work with us? And the answer is because not only can we give them the brand recognition and the brand recall that they seek, but we can work with them across the entire marketing funnel, everything from data acquisition to even driving transactions. And where that starts is essentially all through supercharging our partnerships with analytics and insights. And this slide is just a very high level graphic of just showing how we work with our partners. At the end of the day, the best way to describe this is typically in our relationship building process. As you can imagine, there's a time where I or someone on my team will meet a brand or an agency, and we'll do a lot of the talking. But actually, the most powerful moments in our relationships with our partners is kind of in the second or third or even in the fourth meeting, where we do no talking. And instead, we're just listening to our partners. What are their brand values? What are their priorities over the years? What are the products that they really or services they really want to push over the next 12 months? It's that learning process that really enables us to kind of customize how we take that entire kind of full content wheel that I showed you a few slides ago and bring that to bear to drive results. Okay. Um, Now, I'm going to show you a lot of slides on data. Let me just spend kind of one moment here just explaining to you how we go about doing this. First of all, the data that you're seeing is really the synthesis of five different quantitative studies that we've done over essentially the last, I would call, 12 months. And it's been quantitative, which we surveyed over 25,000 social media users, who are really representative of the esports and gaming community, in the 6 markets that we surveyed. All of those markets are here in Southeast Asia. And then there was also a part of our study which was qualitative. So we ran kind of in-depth interviews with a select number of gaming and esports fans in Indonesia and the Philippines. So a lot of this, the short of it is to say, comes from really robust surveying and interviewing that we've been doing in market. So let's kind of dive in the kind of the first thing that I want to show you in this path towards demystifying who the esports fans are. The first is, let's just talk about segmentation. Like, who are the fans and where do they roughly sit? Well, the first thing is, let's just talk about size. There's about 400 million people on the internet in Southeast Asia. A little over half of them, about 225 million of them, we would define as esports and gaming fans. And as you can see below, are the numbers for each country. But in the dotted boxes is a little bit of our start on this journey to demystifying who esports fans are. And I think there's this preconceived notion that many esports fans are kind of young men stuck in their mom's basement just gaming all day. And as you can see here in aggregate, that's farthest from the truth. I mean, the average age of an esports fan in Southeast Asia is 27 years old. I mean, this is someone who potentially has graduated from university or is on their second or third job. And I think the other thing that most people don't really appreciate is that this is in an incredibly gender balanced community in Southeast Asia. Now, this is different in Europe and North America, where it is a little bit more male skewed. But in Southeast Asia, it's very gender balanced. So I always like to start here because I think a lot of people, I think, recognize by now that it's a large community. But I don't think so many people realize that this is potentially an older demo that they thought of, that they once thought of, and it's actually more gender balanced. Now, when we think about segmenting those 225 million esports fans in Southeast Asia, there are a lot of different ways to segment them. Now, through our studies, through our research, there are really two dimensions by which we essentially have classified esports fan. On one dimension, which you see on this graph, is kind of the y axis, which is the person's need for competitiveness. Like, are they in it to win it? The other dimension, which is the x axis, is their need for connectedness, their desire to be with the community, their desire for social recognition. And so across these two dimensions, competitiveness and connectedness, is how we essentially lay out the esports fan segments. Now, so let's dive in here. And on the next slide, you're going to see what those four segments are. We're going to do kind of one slide on each of these, but let me just take you kind of a very high level view of these fan segments. And let's start in the upper right corner. So 16% of the population is people that we would classify as esports fanatics. These are people that are highly competitive and also have a very high need for connectedness. The other segment is the PC masters. These, like their name connotes, they tend to lean more towards PC than mobile. They have a very high need for competitiveness, and their need for connectedness is kind of average. Then there are people who we call mobile natives. These are people who, as their name implies, skew more towards mobile games. Their level of competitiveness or their need for competitiveness not that high, but they have a very high need for connectedness. And then we have kind of the population in the lower left corner. This is who we call the intermittent escapists. These are people whose gaming experience is very kind of an individual journey for them. They don't have a big need to be connected to a community, and gaming for them is less around winning and more about relaxation, de-stressing. It's more of a lean back rather than a lean forward experience. So let's dive deep into each of these four segments to give you a sense of who these people are. The first are the Esports Fanatics. As you can imagine, just by their name, these are highly engaged people. They are here to play to win and gain social credibility. They tend to be trendsetters. They are the ones who are going to try out new games. They're also the ones who really idolize the pro players and the teams. And as you can see on the right here, a big motivation for them is playing to win, advance in the rankings, and they're very tuned into what the new games are, what the new experiences are, and they're the ones who make the recommendations to their friends. So, as typical in most communities, this is really the most avid, the most influential group of esports fans that are out there. The next group that I'd like to talk about are the mobile natives. And I think the first thing, besides their name, which is mobile natives, which already clues you in on their preference for mobile games. I think the big thing that really stands out with this community is that this is the only segment out of the four that over indexes on females. So there are a lot of females in this, and we actually are going to talk about female gamers and esports fans. I have a whole entire section on that coming up. But this segment tends to be mobile savvy. Their motivation is to learn how to be a better player. They also have a desire to grind their way up. These are people that are not shortcutting the system. They're not here to buy progress. They are really part of this journey to become better. And obviously, they thrive in a community. They want that social recognition. They want to be in a community, which is why they have a very high need for connectedness. The next community I'll talk about are the PC Masters. Again, as the name implies here, they have a preference towards kind of high fidelity games. So this is primarily going to be on PC and console. That's not to say that they don't play on mobile. One thing that I should probably say is, in Southeast Asia, regardless of where you are on this kind of 2x2 matrix, you're playing mobile, right? But this segment in particular has a little bit more of a tendency to play PC as well. Um, they are on this journey to perfect their craft. They are very reluctant to pay for advancement. I like to think of these individuals as kind of gaming samurais. I mean, they are really into the craft of being a great gamer. They are aspirational in their sense of playing like and being like the pro players, and they're very very motivated by winning, and by being competitive. The last segment are the intermittent escapists, and as I mentioned before, at the high level, these are independent people. They're more individual